Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Kevan Chapman with you this evening. Well, we've had a lot of success stories on this program, but I don't think we've featured anyone that's faced quite the adversity and faced it so well, may I add. Joining me on the show today, Robert Sweezie, president of ITS Communications. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, as I said, you have a very successful business here in Grand Rapids. It's branched out into different parts of the state. You now have representatives over the better part of the Midwest, parts of the East as well. But you started off with a little bit of adversity, a lot of adversity rather. Just start off, tell me about your childhood a little bit. You're dyslexic, and that led to a lot of problems in school, as I understand. Yeah,
not just dyslexic, but I never actually knew I was dyslexic at the time. So all through school, I went to a Gull Lake High School, Gull Lake schools, and I never knew I was dyslexic. So when you don't read or read well, you automatically get put into a group of maybe the less well-performing, lower IQ type individuals. I didn't find out till after I had dropped out of high school in the 11th grade that I actually had a disability of dyslexia, and I went to a clinical neuropsychologist and found out I had a relatively high IQ, but it was a learning disability. So that made it very challenging.
You dropped out of school in 11th grade. Tell me what school was like for you leading up to that time.
Impossible. I could go to 6 classes a day and never take a pencil. I failed first grade. Should have been a sign there somewhere. There was a problem. But after that, they won't keep failing you. They pretty much push you through the system. I'm optimistic to think that schools are better now, most of them, but that still exists in a lot of areas. So I was the problem child, always getting into trouble, pushing the limits everywhere I could. And when I was 16, my parents were both killed in a private plane. So then I lacked the parental motivation to stay in school and just dropped out.
And it was after that you found out that you were in fact dyslexic. You got some treatment for that, as I understand, but you also turned to alcohol after that, another one of the struggles you made it through. Tell me about that part of your life.
Well, being 16 and having your parents both die, and it was tough, to say the least. So drinking was a crutch, I guess, I grabbed. Probably a few other crutches that we might not talk about on TV that we grabbed at the time in the late 70s. Mm-hmm. But it was a real struggle for me for quite a few years. I just hid in the bottle. And it made it difficult to pull yourself out of that, and but it's one of those things, if you don't pick yourself up, nobody else will. So you get to a point in life where you say, if anybody's going to make anything out of my life, it's me, and I have to do it. So
there's a wonderful story on you and your business in the Grand Rapids Press in February, and reading through that was a bit enlightening as well. You mentioned that dyslexia was kind of a gift for you and actually helped you a little bit through some of your adversity.
You know, a lot of people have approached me and said, oh, well, I want you to talk to my son or my daughter, they're dyslexic, and you've overcame dyslexia, and I haven't overcame it. There's no fix to it. I still don't read very well. I memorize a lot of words, but you really don't read, you don't get over it. What you do is adapt, and you figure out that the things in life that you can't do well, you just go with that. But there is positively what I call it the gift of dyslexia. Really, dyslexics, a lot of dyslexics are right-brained individuals versus a traditional learner or reader is a left brain. And being a right-brained, very visual type person, that allows you to look at problems or opportunities differently than anybody else. And I believe that I'm able to use that in business and look at business opportunities differently than other people and able to take advantage of them or exploit them at a much more aggressive pace than other people.
What do you see that other people don't?
Solutions. I've been told by some psychologists that I think more binary, which means when a traditional person, I would assume, looks at a problem, if the choices are from the far left to the far right, you automatically start looking at the solutions that are in the middle. But it's either yes or no, on or off, black or white, period. So because of that, I'm able to look at a problem or a multiple step opportunity and go very deep into the equation or run the scenario to the end very quickly. Where a lot of people say, well, if it's between 50 and 100, maybe it's 60 or 70, that really limits them on the next choice and the next choice and the next choice of figuring out a business problem or a business opportunity or a marketing plan or a path. What's the ultimate end goal? But if you go to extremes, which if you talk to my wife, you'll find I am an extreme person. It's one or the other. If you can do that, then that allows you to make definitive decisions and allow you to step through a process very deep, very quickly.
Some people would say that's a disadvantage in the business world, is jumping from one extreme or the other, but you seem to do very well with it. What are some examples? And we should probably tell our viewers what your company does for starters.
Our main core business is we supply connectivity. So if a company has multiple locations, 5 or 10 or 100 different business locations, we supply the connectivity for computer networks that allow them to communicate with each other. Our largest customer here in Michigan is Farm Bureau Insurance. They have 280 insurance offices, and we connect them all back to their computer center in Lansing. We have many other customers that are national, that we connect them across the United States. The thought of the disadvantage of not coming to a middle ground conclusion, not being an advantage in business, I don't look at that at all. I think a huge problem that business people have is not being able to make a decision. Should we sell this, should we not? Let's test it, let's play, let's go halfway, and then we find out that by going halfway, oh, it really didn't work. Well, did it not work because you only went halfway? So in my way of thinking, either we come to a conclusion, we won't do it at all, or we're going to do it. And if you really commit to something, maybe that product or solution was very well accepted. But making a mediocre decision, what's the old expression? Horse built by committee is a camel. We don't have camels. We make decisions one way or the other.
Good analogy. How long have you been at this? How long has your business been in existence?
This is year 20. So by the gray hair, as you can see, it's catching up.
What sparked your interest in starting your own business? You started it, as I understand, shortly after you recovered from your bout with alcoholism.
Necessity drives all things. I was, for all practical purposes, broke, penniless. I borrowed $1,200 from my younger brother and started in a spare bedroom of our house. I did have to pay the $1,200 back, by the way. And because I was dyslexic, I couldn't fill out a job application. So I couldn't get a job at McDonald's or anywhere. I couldn't fill the application out. So I had no choice but to start my own company. Nobody else would hire me.
What was it about the communications field that drew you to that?
I had a family acquaintance from our local church, and AT&T broke up in 1984, who worked with AT&T and had an idea to do a communications company, and wondered if I would come to work with him on that, and I did, and a number of years later we bought him out, and 20 years later here we are.
The in-between time, was it tough to get the business off the ground? I know a lot of entrepreneurs start and they just have to throw in the towel after a year or two because they just can't get things going.
Very difficult. I mean, for us, we started with, it's the two extremes, the good and the bad. The bad news was we didn't have a rich uncle leave me $1 million to start the company. The great news is we didn't have a rich uncle leave me $1 million to start the company. If we would have not learned how to operate a company frugally, and I'll say correctly along the way. But doing it with no money and building it from nothing is difficult. There are many days when you look out and say, wow, I owe $40,000 and people owe me 30. This doesn't work. I have to go faster. So in the beginning, it made it interesting.
It sounds like you learned everything on the fly, too, as this was your first entrepreneurial experience.
I'll say that's a gift that my COO tells me I have, is I have no fear. I say I used to be shy, then I turned 5. I just approach situations and learn from them. So when I started off, I had no idea how to sell. At that time was telecommunications equipment. I said, well, I'll call on 10 customers, and after I call on 10, I'll know how to call on a company. After I sell 10, I'll know how to sell. And how do you learn? You don't. You just go do it. I've never been one, obviously not reading very many books in my whole life, to read or learn from somebody else on how they would approach a problem or how they would approach a business solution. I would just do them on my own, which I think also gave me a great advantage.
No fear, is that crucial for business people?
If you are an entrepreneur and you positively believe you can succeed, you have to have that in order to succeed. So for business people, no, it's not crucial at all. For entrepreneurs who are going to do it on their own, they have to have maybe not only no fear, but they have to have an internal driving desire and know beyond any shadow of a doubt that they can accomplish whatever they put their mind to. Whether they can or not is a wholly different answer. But you have to believe that you can, or you never will.
Do you see it as a blessing that you got into the telecommunications industry, seeing as how much this field has grown in the last 20 years? I mean, look where we are right now in a TV studio.
You know, maybe. I mean, it's nice, but I think it wouldn't have probably mattered if I would have went into construction or any other endeavor. I don't know that I would have been any more or less successful, as long as you approach it with the same tenacity and never doubt that you can be successful. You can be successful at anything.
I also understand another quotation from the Grand Rapids Press business article. You mentioned through all the adversity, you always knew that you'd be successful. How did you know that?
I'll guess if you interviewed professional athletes in the NFL, you would find that a large percentage, 80–90%, if you asked them if they could remember back when they were in high school, if they knew they were going to be a professional athlete, they would say positively there was never a doubt I knew I was going to play in the NFL. And they did. Now, of course, there's another 200,000 kids that play football in high school that they also believe they're going to be in the NFL, and they don't make it. But I will say that there isn't any kids in high school that don't believe they're going to be in the NFL get there. You have to have that drive.
Did you ever lose hope?
Oh, sure. You always have down moments, down days, but you pick yourself up and go on. You know, it's a cycle up and down. As long as you have more ups and downs, you're all set.
It's a different era now from when you started your business, but just based on some of the forces that you're reacting to right now, what would your advice be for a young person that's facing the same sort of challenges starting their own business in this economic climate?
So it's a fantastic economic climate to start. When we started in '84, we were at the end of, in the early '80s, there was a recession then also, and we just didn't know it. Ignorance is a beautiful thing in business. So when we came out of that recession, every day and every month and every year, things got easier and got better, and you start building momentum. So if there's ever a time to start a business, it's now. If you have the ability to start while it's tough, because it's still tough, over the next 10 years, we're going to come out of this and the economy will pick up and your business picks up along the way, you can really build momentum. To start at the crest would probably give you a lot of false sense of ability that you probably don't have.
Do you see a lot of these people who are being laid off from their positions starting jobs, and do you think that's going to be a good thing for the economy coming up here in the future?
You know, it's an individual thing. If they have the drive, yes, but most people, and I'll pick on the entrepreneurial people, either you are or you aren't. So a person who's getting laid off, they actually work for somebody else. They probably weren't the entrepreneur to start with, or they would have been on their own.
Dog eat dog.
Well, it's just where you want to stand. I mean, I don't know that I could ever, I know that I could never work for anybody else. That was never a choice or question.
Is there any other tips that you'd add for anybody entering the entrepreneurial realm right now?
Set your goals really high, unrealistically high. You know, if you set a goal that I need to get to whatever, $1 million. And I need to be there in 10 years. So you set a time goal. Well, maybe the worst thing is you actually hit it. What if you actually set that goal at a ridiculous level of $100 million? And you fall terribly short and end up at $40 million. You have to ask yourself, where do you actually want to end up? So I continually move goals, and my people who work for me all know that I set them pretty high. And I have no problem setting a goal high and not making it as long as we have great success and growth. The thing I think that would be most distressing is set the bar at $10 and waking up and saying, oh, here we are at 11, going, wow, I wonder, was that all we had? Was that it? Did we really stretch ourselves? I doubt it. We set the bar at the wrong spot. So you got to set the bar high, always believe in yourself. You know, inside there was, and you asked me this earlier, there was never a time, I remember when I was driving my brother's car that had the window knocked out of it with plastic over it. I mean, that was about at the bottom financially that you could get. And I had a good friend of mine who's now passed away. And we would drive around. I would give the Martin Luther King, I have a dream, I believe, scream as loud as I could in the car. There was never a time that I didn't believe I could be successful, to the point where I would scream it from the car when it was not even my car with the window knocked out of it. That's pretty much the bottom. So if you can have that type of determination, belief, you can be successful. But without it, it's really tough.
Would you say you've made it to where you want to be right now?
Oh, not close. But a great place to start from.
Well, what are your goals at this point?
Oh, I would like multiple houses all over the world. That's a fantasy that I would like to have.
Who wouldn't?
Well, yeah. But how bad do you want them, I guess? You know, and that's the other thing. I mean, my wife and I live here in Ada. We love our house here. We have a place up on Lake Michigan that we enjoy. So we are very blessed. I would like to not work for economic gain. I've done a few mission trips with some friends of mine in our church, and that's real rewarding to me. So there is a point that I would like to get to, hopefully sooner than later, that I will work, but I won't work to make more money. I'll work to accomplish things that are better for humanity or my community or my church.
Would you say that's one of your ultimate goals in doing business right now?
Oh, positively. Being dyslexic, you listen to a lot of tapes, and you don't read much, but a few of the tapes I've listened to are on biblical business principles. And I remember the thing that really surprised me out of that was nowhere in the Bible does it ever talk about retirement. And that's different than us. We always think about, well, I want to work and at 62 or 58, or did you hear John retired at 55? And like that's a bar of success. And nowhere does it ever talk about retirement. So I don't know that retirement, and I would go stir crazy after about 4 days. My wife and I, when we vacation, I go somewhere, and if it's an island, I'm in trouble after 2 or 3 days. I go stir crazy.
That's why you need houses all over the place.
That's right. I don't know if I could ever retire, but change the mode of what I do. So that's positively a goal. I definitely want to retire from economic work and be more involved in working where it probably matters a lot more.
You've already been involved in quite a bit of mission work, as I understand. How did you get into that aspect of things?
I attended church Daybreak in Hudsonville, and Wes Dupin's the pastor there, and he put together a team to go to Bosnia right after the war ended there. A group of half a dozen businessmen, I was one of, to do consulting with some business people there, and we had a 5-city tour. And then we took a half a dozen doctors, and they would go to the hospital during the day and consult with their doctors. And we ended up at a couple orphanages and rallied some support and money to help renovate some orphanages, and brought a lot of Christmas presents on some trips. So it was real rewarding, real rewarding.
Does that put things in perspective for you coming back here to Grand Rapids, West Michigan?
You know, that's probably the greatest thing that keeps me balanced, I guess. Success is one of those things you can get caught up in real quickly. And, you know, it's the Joneses. Well, they have a new SUV, and they have a new indoor pool. And, boy, a 3,000 square foot house is great until they build a 6,000 foot house next to you. Well, we need a 7,000 foot. I mean, where does that stop? It never does. But when you travel the world and you get to countries, whether, we were in Nepal, and the average income for Nepal is under $1,000 a year. Life expectancy is 47 years old. It's about the bottom of our country, very close to Afghanistan, geographically and economically. when you come back to the United States, you understand what's real important and what isn't. And our level of success, if I describe somebody who has a automobile and a microwave oven and 2 colored TVs, I've either described somebody in one of those third world countries who is very wealthy, or somebody in the United States who could be considered very poor. In that content, we have very few poor people in the United States. And the people who consider ourselves middle class are extremely wealthy on a global environment. And you need to have that bar set that, you don't always need more, and you don't need a bigger house and a bigger car, because just being in America puts you at the top of the rung already. And anything you climb above that, you need to be very cognizant of that. You're very, very fortunate.
How does that put your personal adversity and struggles into perspective when you see people living like that in other countries?
Makes me appreciate the gifts that I have, like the gift of dyslexia. It's fabulous. To be able to be in an environment where I work with a group right now on a committee for Davenport University, and it's their committee that helps set their academia council. To think that I get to sit with a group of professors that help guide curriculum for a college, and I don't even have a high school diploma, that's exciting to me. And if you're able to do that, and if you're able to do so much that we have opportunities here in the United States, and then you look at the rest of the world, China, we've been to China, and people working for 27 cents an hour, and those could be the lucky ones because they have jobs there. The disparity between us and them is so great that you really need to stay humble and realize that your success that you have and appreciate it.
You got a couple of young children right now that you're looking after, but do you see yourself going back overseas to pick up missionary work when your kids get old enough?
Oh, positively, yeah. We have, my wife and I are blessed with a pair of twins that are 18 months old, a boy and a girl, and they're a handful right now. So for the last 2 years, our travel has went to almost zero. But this fall we'll to take a trip. My brother's a missionary in Vietnam. We'll be going and seeing him this fall, Vietnam and Cambodia, and after that we'll be back on track, we're hoping.
You gotta love bringing up the kids though, right?
Oh, it's great. It really is.
Are they your first?
First and last.
First and last. How's that been so far? I mean, does that put into perspective the personal challenges that you've had to deal with?
Changes everything totally. Before, my wife and I, it was about us. Whatever it took to take care of us, and we were happy. And now this third dimension turns your life 180 degrees, and the things that were important before aren't near as important. And it's perspective changing, I guess I'll call it. I made a comment the other day that sends my wife over the edge. I made a comment that, well, I hope Brock is our son. I hope he's dyslexic. And, she doesn't know what to think of that. It's like, well, what a great gift that is, because that would allow him to take advantage, I'll call it in the business world, of opportunities that if he was normal, if there's such a thing, he wouldn't be able to do that. It makes you look at things a lot differently.
That's a very unique perspective. We've got about a minute left. What's in store for the future, the immediate future for you and your company, ITS?
The telecommunications environment is changing very quickly. There's been traditional connectivity, connect buildings, and a lot of people looking at the internet. We've really approached the business at a middle point, which is intranet, high-speed connectivity using a carrier backbone, allowing very inexpensive connectivity very fast. So that's a new product we've just rolled that we just rolled out nationwide in the last month. But for us, we've reinvented ourselves 3 or 4 times in the last 20 years. And I made a comment 5 years ago that one of our reps came to me and quoted back to me. He said, you had a meeting, company-wide meeting, you said 5 years ago that our #1 product that we'll sell in 5 years, we didn't even have then. And he says, that's come to pass. And I said, yes, but I'll repeat it again. 5 years from now, our #1 product that we will sell, we don't even have. So you have to continually reinvent yourself to stay on top of technology or will run over you.
It's a great industry to be in, and it was great to have you on the show today, Robert Sweezie with ITS Communications. We wish you well.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight on Newsmakers. We appreciate you being with us. You can also join us on the radio for Morning Edition weekdays at 5 in the morning, midday at noon, and also All Things Considered every weekday at 4 p.m. with your host, Scott Vanderwerf. That's all on WGVU Radio, and you can also email us your feedback, comments, story ideas. Get to us at feedback@gvsu.edu. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way and send us a letter. Newsmakers, care of Fred Martino at WGVU Television, 301 West Fulton, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49504 is the address. Thanks for being with us on Newsmakers. I'm Kevan Chapman.